This is Autoline Daily, the show dedicated to enthusiasts of the global automotive industry. After a surprise strike at its largest and most profitable truck plant in Kentucky, Ford held a special meeting yesterday where a top official said of its latest contract offer to the UAW, quote, "We have reached our limit." Its offer includes a 23% wage increase, a 3-year progression to top pay instead of 8, and cost of living adjustments, or COLA. The Ford exec said the company could move money around in its offer, but in terms of the total cost of Ford, it's at its limit. If we are to take Ford at its word, then I've got to imagine that GM and Stellantis are approaching their top offers. And by the time you're watching the show today, UAW President Shawn Fain will already have done his live stream about the progress of negotiations. No doubt it was an impassioned speech, and I also think it's safe to bet that he said they're still not there yet with a deal. In the last round, GM and Stellantis were behind Ford in their offers, so it may seem that they are making more progress this time around. But if they're also reaching their limits, then the UAW won't wait long to hit their biggest and most profitable plants. One thing's for sure, over the next few weeks, we should truly know how big some of the sticking points are to the union, like representation at JV battery plants that aren't built yet, pensions, and post-retirement health care. If they're not budging, like we've said before, at some point the automakers won't just sit around and could start to try and inflict their own pain on the union. And while there's been a lot of attention on the UAW's fight for better wages in the US, Tesla is facing its own union battle in Germany. The EV maker's plant in the country is not unionized, but earlier this week, German union IG Metall claimed that 1,000 workers at the plant have joined its effort to collectively bargain for better wages and working conditions. The plant employs about 11,000 people. IG Metall claims that Tesla's wages are 20% less than factory workers at the other German car brands. So in response, Tesla said it will give workers at its Berlin plant a pay raise this year and will inform them in November how much it is. Last year, they got a 6% pay bump. And Ford is taking a similar approach with its EV battery plants in the US. The automaker and its JV partner, SK On, announced they're boosting wages at their planned EV battery plants in Kentucky and Tennessee. Workers will now be able to earn up to $37.50 an hour, up from a previous range of $21 to $29 an hour. The UAW wants to bring workers at joint venture battery plants into the master contract agreement so they get full wages like workers at assembly plants. Ford seems to be resisting this a little bit, but it said it has been bargaining in good faith with the UAW this week on joint venture battery plants. And with GM caving on the issue, both it and Stellantis will probably have to follow.
At Schaeffler, we pioneer motion. Electrifying mobility, manufacturing smarter, reducing CO2 emissions, making energy production clean. Schaeffler pioneers motion to advance how the world moves.
Kia revealed the EPA estimated ranges for the EV9 electric SUV. The rear-wheel drive model with the optional 99.8 kilowatt-hour battery pack is rated at 304 miles, and the all-wheel drive version with the same pack is rated at 280 miles. The rear drive model with the standard 76.1 kilowatt-hour battery pack is rated at 230 miles of range. The EV9 will start arriving at dealer showrooms sometime this quarter, and Kia will start taking reservations next week. The EV9 starts at about $56,400, including destination charges. The U.S. is on track to sell 1 million pure electric vehicles for the first time ever this year. According to Cox Automotive and Kelley Blue Book, automakers set a record, selling more than 313,000 EVs in the third quarter, an increase of nearly 50%. That puts the total at 873,000 so far this year, and Cox expects the U.S. to pass 1 million EV sales in November. EVs accounted for 7.9% of the total market in the third quarter, which is an all-time high. And with more EV models coming, it's not surprising that Tesla's EV market share continues to tumble. It was 62% in the first quarter, but fell to 50% in Q3. However, its sales are still up 26% so far this year, and Cox says its share could go back up with deliveries of the Cybertruck expected to start sometime this quarter. Of the legacy brands, BMW is doing the best, with EVs accounting for 15.6% of its total sales in the U.S., ahead of Audi, Volvo, Volkswagen, and Mercedes, which are all in the 12% range. And speaking of EV sales, the Volkswagen Group says its global electric car sales are up 45% so far this year. The automaker has sold 531,500 EVs through the first 9 months of the year, accounting for about 8% of its total sales. That includes the VW brand, Audi, Seat, Cupra, Porsche, Skoda, plus its commercial and truck brands. The VW Group's EV sales were fueled by big gains in Europe and the US, up 61 and 74% respectively. But its electric sales in China are only up 4% so far this year. While these are good numbers overall, VW says its EV sales are below its targets because demand is weaker than it expected. GM is making a little more progress towards software-defined vehicles. It's launching a program called U-Services to the Connected Vehicle Systems Alliance, a global software developer community. GM will leverage this large group of developers to set software standards for interfacing with the various systems in a vehicle. This will speed up the time it takes to develop and put new software into vehicles. GM hopes to eventually create an entire ecosystem that can use third-party software, like from these developer communities, as a way to reduce its engineering costs. BMW's BEV sales in the third quarter were nearly 80% higher compared to last year, and it's securing a massive battery order so it can keep up with its electric transition. Reports out of China say BMW will get batteries for its EVs in Europe from S-Volt, a subsidiary of Chinese automaker Great Wall Motor. But it's the terms of the deal that are most shocking. BMW is said to be paying S-Volt roughly $13 billion for nearly 90 gigawatt hours of batteries. And even if every single one of those battery packs was 100 kilowatt hours, which is on the big side, that would be enough to power 900,000 EVs. BMW also has battery deals with CATL and EVE Energy. And so far this year, it's sold a little more than 217,000 BEVs around the world. And that kind of makes me wonder how a company like BMW sells so many more electrics than giants like Ford and GM. That brings us to the end of today's show. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope that you have a great weekend.
Autoline Daily is brought to you by Bridgestone, solutions for your journey. Intrepid Control Systems, over-the-air engineering, boost your game. And by Schaeffler, we pioneer motion. We want to know what drives your testing. OTA, connected car, diagnostics, remote testing. Intrepid Control Systems is here to help you work from anywhere. Intrepid Control Systems, driven by your data. Ward's is the industry leader for news, data, and analysis. That's why companies across the globe subscribe to our premium service, maybe even your own. Log in for subscriber access now. Check your company's intranet for details and rely on wardsauto.com to keep you informed.